I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, The Future in Motion, AI, Privacy, Climate, and the Tech That Move Us. One of his advocacy, none other than Mr. Kenneth Chester. Welcome, Mr. Ken, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I
Yes,
miss?
I'm the founder of TechMobility Productions. We are a radio production firm. We produce radio shows about technology and mobility and distribute them across the United States. Been doing that now for 8 years, and we talk about all sorts of things: AI, climate change, um, motor vehicles, space hotels. Pretty much whatever catches my interest, I get to talk about it. So I do.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Ken. Thank you. And today, let's talk about climate meets the commute, rethinking mobility in a warming world.
Mhm.
So, the title, friends, of our topic is Climate Meets the Commute. In concrete terms, what is the single most impactful data point that illustrates how our daily transportation choices directly fuel the climate crisis?
Well, motor vehicles put about three-fourths of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And right now, the world is producing about 40 tons of that a year. And there's no way you can put 40 tons of anything anywhere and not expect to have a change. The challenge is, however, um, with changing federal policies, it's put really kind of slowed down the interest across a wide variety of sustainability projects that would impact that, from electric cars, fuel cell cars, other technologies, battery chemistries. All of that has been significantly so slowed as a result of the administration. As a result, what would have happened, i.e., the cost of electric cars and alternative fuel vehicles coming down substantially as the automakers scale up, is going to be mitigated somewhat because of the changes. And it's ironic because American taxpayers have been underwriting oil companies for years through tax credits and other types of governmental assistance. So it seems kind of paradoxical that they would do this to a technology that has much more advantages than merely climate change.
Mr. Ken, beyond the tailpipe emissions, how does our car centric mobility systems exacerbate climate vulnerability through urban heat islands, sprawl, and impermeable surface?
Well, actually, that's two questions. So let me deal with the first one. Your vehicle is mainly made of steel. Approximately half to 60% of your vehicle is made of steel. Steel is the most difficult industry next to cement to decarbonize. So every vehicle that gets made contributes to global warming in its manufacturing. Even though approximately 70% of steel is reclaimed, there's still a lot of steel making that goes on from virgin steel. So there's that. The second thing has to do, oh boy, with redlining in the United States and the fact that poor people typically end up living in areas of town that are less desirable. That is industrial areas, areas near plants like power plants, chemical plants, other plants that pollute both toxins in the air, may foul water nearby, and is mostly paved over with cement. These heat deserts in cities can add as much as 15 degrees to the ambient temperature in any day during the summer. There is a cure for that, and the cure, very simply, believe it or not, plant a tree. Planting trees are probably the number one thing that people in heat deserts can do to lower the temperature. Because you'll also notice in better parts of town where people are upwardly mobile or higher income parts of town, you notice they're more green, more leafy, and generally cooler and quieter.
Hmm. More leafy, for sure. We often talk about electric vehicles as the solution. What are the critical upstream and systemic challenges embodied that simple EV swap fails to address?
Oh boy. EV swaps is something that hasn't really caught on in the United States that much. But let me start with a major advantage. The battery, as engineered, is a major expense of any EV. It is the majority expense of any EV. So if you
Mhm.
remove having to own the battery, you're saving, they've estimated as much as $10,000 or more off the sticker price of the vehicle. For smaller vehicles, that definitely would have a major effect in making them more affordable and making them easier to adopt. Um, the other challenge that you have that would be actually mitigated by EV battery swaps is particularly those people who live in apartments in urban areas that don't have access to either a garage to plug it in or a nearby public place where they're parking the car where they can plug their vehicle in, where they have to go somewhere. um, Being able to do a swap actually makes it easier to live almost anywhere because now it's a swap. It's done typically in 5 or 10 minutes. It's more popular in Europe, definitely way more popular in China right now. But it is gaining ground here. If there's one thing that it does not address, is that in order for an EV swap to make sense, the vehicle has to be designed for it. Just because it's an EV doesn't mean that it is lend itself to swap a battery, particularly since the way that EVs are designed in America, it typically forms the floor of the vehicle. They actually build the vehicle and the battery is part of the running chassis. So it would make it pretty difficult to do unless it was engineered to do. And that is a cost of production issue that may be extra cost for a manufacturer who current product lines that are EVs are not geared that way. So that's a problem. It would have to be engineered from the start to be able to swap. And that is not a place where current manufacturers that are still in the EV market in the United States, and that also includes commercial vehicles, are right now. And that would be a major drawback.
On systemic and rethinking and urban design, Mr. Khan, to truly rethink mobility, we must rethink land use. What does a 15-minute city principle look like in practice for a North American design explicitly around the car? And what are the first most feasible steps to retrofit it?
Oh boy. Um, your biggest challenge is what you just mentioned. The United States of America and every city and town, including the ones that are hundreds of years old, like New York and Boston, have been car friendly. There's a real estate company called Zillow that actually has something called a walk score, and they assess every neighborhood in the country relative to a walk score. While 100 in that score would be totally walkable. Zero would be totally not walkable. Most American cities fall below 30%, a score of 30. What you're talking about is a complete reimagining of city core. That takes policy, that takes money, that takes a will to do it because not everybody's going to be on board. Um, I know a number of cities have taken baby steps. Some of the baby steps, and we've done it here in Des Moines as well, is number one, reimagining streets to slow down traffic and to allow multi transport types of transportation. In other words, not just cars, but walking and bicycles and maybe scooters, and allowing for safe bike paths along the road and ways to encourage people to slow down, which is another issue. Basically, probably the easiest thing, well, the best thing to do, I won't say it's the easiest, is the growing number of roads being imagined for different types of transport, like I said earlier. But still, that's even for a block or two, hundreds of thousands of dollars in reimagining. It gets to be pretty pricey. One thing that's been done heavily out here is reimagining former railroad beds to bike trails. And that's definitely had better traction, particularly as they build them into the cities, connect with bike trails around the state. That's one thing that can be done. Would probably be the easiest thing to do, particularly since many railroads came into city centers and a lot of those railroads are now abandoned. That could be a first good step, but there's so much, so much to revisit there. That is, it's not a 1 or 5 year or 10-year plan. It takes a city, a state, it takes the population in that area all buying in and realizing that this change is necessary for everybody to improve their mobility. Until you get there, you're going to have challenges, but there are success stories. You're looking at Seattle, you're looking at San Francisco, California typically is more multi-transporter friendly than the rest of the country. But a lot of cities and towns are getting the clue. And even out here in the middle of nowhere, like we are, you see a lot more bike trails than you would imagine, and a lot more uh, facilitating different modes of transportation along the same street.
What was the most compelling example you've seen of a city that had successfully relocated space from cars to people and climate resilience?
Nowhere in the United States. I can tell you that.
Not
Nowhere
even
in the United
one.
States. Until we come to grasp with the reality that motor vehicles is such a part of our everyday lives. And in some parts of the country, like where I'm at, it's almost impossible to get anywhere without it. We are just not built as a country for that. But when you go over to Europe, and I've been over to Europe, understand that those cities were largely settled hundreds of years before the advent of the motor vehicle. So they were already pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, to a lesser extent, e-bike friendly. So they had that built in. So as a result, the cars are the outliers there, and it's easier to purge them over time. I'm thinking of one city in Germany, I want to say, I think it was Hamburg, Germany, where they were looking at eliminating cars from a certain part of the city center entirely. New York tried to
Mhm.
experiment with what they call basically a use tax or metering on getting into the lower part of Manhattan. It was supposed to go into effect in January. They delayed it to June. It got delayed again. They're seeing some basic success with eliminating traffic in the core during the week, but the pricing is so convoluted. You almost need a scorecard to figure out, based on the type of transportation you're bringing into the city and when you're coming in, how much it's going to cost you. I think they made it overly complicated, but there are some sprouts of hope. But honestly, as a country, we're nowhere close. There's little pockets of hope, but as far as any major city that I would give an A to, no, no, not yet.
Not yet.
Not
So, public transit is a crucial but often underfunded and stigmatized. How do we redesign the experience for of transit from reliability to safety to comfort to make it genuinely desirable choice for commuting public, not last a resort?
hard truth. Right now, there is not a single public transportation agency that is self-sufficient. All of them get some sort of monies from state, local, and federal governments in order to function. And that's from Amtrak all the way down to local systems like New York, Chicago, Boston, Washington, D.C., to a lesser extent, California. Again, what you're looking at is you need a major shift in policy, a major shift in how people look at transportation, a major shift in that, the bus is not the transportation of last resort. In some neighborhoods, it is the only way you can get around. I mean, back in the 70s, when I was in college in Boston, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, we call it the T, if you were within 50 miles of Boston, you didn't really need to own a car. Problem is, the T right now, after years of underfunding, needs $24 billion just to get back whole. $24 billion. And they've been around over 120 years. And they need $24 billion. And that's in capital improvements. That doesn't even include the shortfall in their operating expenses. To my knowledge, very few of the major systems in the United States are seeing levels pre-pandemic. And that's still not a compliment because you're still looking at needing some sort of subsidy in order to do it. So again, what you're looking for is a major change, a groundswell, and some intestinal fortitude from our legislators, and a desire from the public that this is what we want. This is what we're willing to pay for. This is how we want to transition. Right now, you're not going to get anybody hardly to give up their car or their truck or their SUV when they need to. But the problem is, it's freedom. And that's how the United States has been defined for the last 120, 130 years, that mobility is freedom. And until we can redefine that, particularly in big cities, particularly for underserved and non-served communities within urban areas that need alternatives and don't have them, until we can get there and say that their problem is everybody's problem, then I don't see that happening. I don't see public transportation getting to the point, again, I point to Europe. I've traveled in Europe. They're clean, they're fast, reliable, and who would travel any other way in Europe? But we have this love affair with the vehicle, with the motor vehicle. And until that changes, until we come to grips with looking at what we need to do as the greater good, then we're still going to have challenges. We're still U.S. policy, which changed, but U.S. transportation policy relative to the funding of roads puts maybe 98 cents out of every federal dollar that goes for transportation towards highways, and maybe 2 cents towards any public transportation or alternative transportation. And that's right now.
Hmm. So, Mr. Ken, as a TechMobility Productions, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Goals for, I'm sorry, I didn't get.
Yes, what are your short-term and long-term goals in
Oh,
general?
for me? Oh,
Yes,
my.
please.
For me. Wow. Well, I produce 3 different radio shows, always looking to attract more listeners and followers of my podcasts that I produce and some of the social media posts. I guess that would be my short and long-term goals. Obviously, grow the podcast, grow the radio shows. We'd love to get into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if possible. But that's a long-term goal. We've been producing radio shows now. This is the start of our 8th year. We've been producing podcasts now for about 4 years. So just continue to grow.
Just continue to grow and looking forward for more success and good luck, Mr. Ken. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh my, to be like me. 2
Mm-hmm.
words: consistency and be yourself. Be authentic. Don't chase everything that AI says you should chase. Don't fall for, well, this is what's popular, because everybody's doing
Mm-hmm.
it. Stay true to you. Follow what you know, what you love, what you want to talk about or share with the world. Because honestly, nobody shares it like you do. We're all unique. We all have a different
Yes.
perspective of many things. And if I was to leave one last thought, don't be
Mm-hmm.
discouraged if there's thousands of people doing or in the subject that you want to express. I built a whole company nationwide based on thousands of people being in that same business and had been in that business for over 100 years. And I was still able to build a national business right here from the center of Iowa. So It's true.
Well, thank you for that advice, Mr. Ken. And can you please recommend a book of books that influenced your journey?
The book I think that everybody should read is the last book I recommended. It's called Breakneck by Dan Wang. It's China's Quest to Engineer the Future. I think it's an excellent book for anybody who is interested in geopolitics and where things are going. It's a brilliant idea. It is a brilliant opportunity to peek into the mind of a world power and get an idea what's going on.
Yes, what's going on? And thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Khan. And for a person feeling overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis, what is the one tangible, high impact action they can take this month to advocate for, participate in rethinking mobility in their own community?
Um, that is a big question because it is literally local specific. If
Hmm.
they feel that they want to get engaged, probably the best thing to do is to start finding out what transportation is like. Go to your website for your Department of Transportation. If your city or state has a Department of Transportation, start there. Start to learn what they're doing, maybe what they're not doing. Look for advocacy groups. There are bicycle groups, walking groups, hiking groups that are around. Find out what they're doing. May even go to your Department of Environment, if you have such a department. Natural resources in most states, larger cities may even have some sort of sustainability function. Find out. But for those folks who are just overwhelmed, sometimes it's good to just shut everything off, walk away for a little bit, grab a book and read for a while, and just kind of reset. Take a breath and reset, because it is very overwhelming right now on what's going on.
Yes, people, reset, reset. We need that reset button. And Mr. Khan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in that third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in third season, and Food 101 in sixth season too. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 review, Music 101 and fifth season, Science 101, Sex 101 and third season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and the newest, Motivation 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Ken, ultimately, is the goal of rethinking mobility is simply to reduce carbon emission, or is it a catalyst for building more connected, healthy, and resilient human communities?
Yes to both is the quick answer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Getting a healthier environment is tantamount for a variety of reasons. But again, it gets down to people going to want it. It's not going to do itself. They can't expect the government to do it on their own. People need to get engaged. And I think that's really it. But it's going to take all of us to make that happen.
Yes, Mr. Kenneth Chester, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your podcast, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. Our two podcasts, the Tech Mobility Podcast and Tech Mobility Topics, are they're on over 20 different platforms. The Tech Mobility Podcast is the long form of our weekly radio show. Tech Mobility Topics is topic driven. It's smaller bites of 8 to 11 minutes for those people who might just want to listen to that subject. Pretty much you can find me anywhere that you enjoy a podcast. Just remember, Tech Mobility is one word.
Tech Mobility people, let's support Mr. Ken Chester, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering tech mobility will rise. So, Mr. Ken, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Modicon people, see you soon.